Israeli War Cabinet member Benny Gantz is calling for national elections in September, saying he believes it will allow Israel society to renew its contract with its leadership. Now, thousands of Israelis have taken to the streets in recent days demanding a vote. Now, many have criticized Netanyahu over his handling of the war and failure to return the Israeli hostages.
In order to maintain unity and to overcome the challenges facing us, the public must know that soon we will once again ask for their trust. That we will not ignore the massacre of October 7th and that which preceded it. Therefore, we must agree on a date for elections in September, towards the year to the war, if you will.
I believe that the Israeli society needs to renew its contract with its leadership, and I think the only way to do it and still maintaining the national effort in fighting Hamas and terrorist group and other security challenges is by having an agreed election date that we have to discuss when and if. And I hope that my political partners and friends, and maybe some rivals as well, will agree to it, because I think it serves all the country and all its sectors in the same time.
Our international correspondent, Faith Orr, joins me right now. Thank you so much, Faith. Now, it's quite difficult to comprehend now, looking at those pictures in Rafah, and then over 33,000 people dead, and some of them including aid workers. But Israel still continues with the bombing.
They do indeed. We know that even in Beit Hanun in the north of Gaza in the past few hours, another 4 people have been killed, including a paramedic. It was actually a rescue team that was at the site of an Israeli strike. They were trying to pull people out of the rubble when then they were attacked. So certainly these attacks are continuing. I just want to bring you up to date with something we've heard in the past few minutes. We understand that the phone call between Biden and Netanyahu is happening now. And we are getting reports that Biden is said to be absolutely furious with Netanyahu and really dragging him over the coals about that aid worker attack, of course, when 7 people were killed on Monday. The issue of Rafah also on that agenda, because of course the US doesn't want Israel to go into Rafah, where 1.5 million displaced Palestinians are sheltering. But despite the US pressure on that, as we're saying, you know, these attacks are continuing, the stopping of aid is continuing. We had quite a stark figure came out from an aid agency today, which said that people in the north of Gaza since January have been surviving on 245 calories a day. Wow. Now, if you think that a man on average needs about 2,500 a day, it's not even 10% that they're
of
getting.
What the average human needs.
Exactly, and that's been the case since January. And you know, as you said there, more than 33,000 people are dead. We know that there's tens of thousands more as well under the rubble, so that death toll will increase quite markedly. And all of this as the war is approaching its 6-month mark, with very little to show for either side. Israel has destroyed Gaza, but it certainly hasn't destroyed Hamas. There's many civilian casualties and no end in sight as it stands.
It's a shame. Now we expect, Biden to use some very strong words like you've put out there, but then the questions surround, the relationship between the United States and Israel, particularly as regards the sales of bombs. As long as these bombs continue to go off, a lot of people will believe the United States is complicit.
Exactly, and there are calls throughout the United States and the United Kingdom to stop these arms sales to Israel. We actually heard from the Elders today, the group that was formed by Nelson Mandela in 2007, which includes lots of well-recognised global leaders, and they are calling for all nations to stop sending arms to Israel. They say there are systematic violations of international humanitarian law in Gaza and in the occupied West Bank, because of course Israel's still attacking people in the occupied West Bank as well as in Gaza. From the UK, we saw a letter sent to the government with 600 signatories to it, mostly from the legal profession, and they are saying that the arms being sent by the UK is adding to this risk of genocide. They say that the UK could be culpable in this genocide. The letter calls for a permanent ceasefire, for aid delivery to be increased, and for sanctions to be issued against people culpable of these war crimes. We heard from the UK Foreign Minister, David Cameron, today. He is saying that he wants more crossings opened for more aid to get in, but of course no one is actually forcing Israel to do any of these things.
It's quite a shame. And you also want to take a look at the situation around the Middle East, and you know, so much is happening in Lebanon also, and there's some kind of tension. Talk to us about how this has affected relationships in the Middle East.
I mean, there are these fears that all of this, of course, is going to spill over into more regional escalation. We know that things are quite calm in southern Lebanon today, but we do know that Hezbollah has attacked an Israeli army unit near the border. They say they were carrying out maintenance operations on espionage items, espionage soft equipment there. So Hezbollah certainly still keeping up its attacks. Now, we've heard from the Israeli army today where they are bolstering their air defensive. They've cancelled all the leave of all the soldiers, and they have mobilised reservists. They've also blocked GPS coordinates in the country. And of course, all of this, they haven't said this explicitly, but all of this is because they are expecting a retaliation from Iran to that strike in Damascus the other day. This has sparked some panic in Israel, where residents are now being urged to not buy generators, not withdraw cash, don't stockpile food, because people are seeing the army doing all this and they think, well, war is coming here. So the army is saying, you don't need to do all that, we'll update if there's any change. But you know, Iran has said it will retaliate. We're seeing Hezbollah. We're not sure if it will be Iran itself. They could use Hezbollah to retaliate, or the Houthis. You know, they're in control of those groups effectively. But just one other point that we're hearing today in relation to the Israeli army is the Israeli media, and it's quite important when the Israeli media reports these things. They're quoting intelligence officers saying that the chief of staff of the Israeli army has lost control of the army. They're saying that people in Gaza, the soldiers in Gaza, are doing whatever they want, that lower level commanders are just issuing orders and completely ignoring any sort of formal requirements, and that it's just chaos, that people are just doing what they want. Israeli media also reporting the presence of execution zones in Gaza today, and there is this real concern over just this lack of discipline in the Israeli army. I mean, we've seen these videos posted where they're basically showing torture, and they feel okay to show that publicly. So it's not that they would have permission to post these videos, but certainly it's all being tolerated. So the Israeli army seems to be in a bit of a mess, and as I say, important because the Israeli media is having its own security sources and reporting this, so it's not just outsiders acknowledging this.
I really would have loved to ask if this is any form of a fatigue. We already see Benny Gantz calling for an election in September. But thank you so much, Kate, for indeed providing all the insights.